Good evening, Simon here, Explosive Action. Bruce Willis. He's got to be one of the biggest action movie stars, up there with Arnold Schwarzenegger, with Sylvester Stallone, with Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, all of the big ones, but not for the same reason as all of the other action stars. Largely, it's because of these films: Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3, and, well, there's Die Hard 4 and 5, but we don't talk too much about those. The Die Hard original trilogy is what really set up Bruce Willis for being an action hero. But he's the everyman hero. He's the guy that shouldn't be there, and he just gets on with saving the day. He's not muscle bound, he doesn't have any special powers, he's just Bruce Willis, the everyman. And this is something that worked out very well for him. These films are hugely popular, and for that he gets lumped in with being an action star, though not really being one. Of course, that's not all he has done. He is well known to 90s audiences for movies like The Sixth Sense. Other movies like The Fifth Element would also be a big one, 12 Monkeys. And then the 2000s happened, a different type of Bruce Willis. He did movies that weren't just all action, but there were plenty of action movies in there. 16 Blocks was the action suspense thriller. He did Red, and later a sequel to Red 2. Science fiction movies like Surrogates, and then later on he did movies like Looper. Bruce Willis has always had big films. He hasn't had the switch to complete direct-to-video stardom that some of the other action stars have had. In 2010, there was a movie from Kevin Smith called Cop Out. The movie was received poorly, and lots of stories came out about how Bruce Willis was very hard to deal with on set. Kevin Smith said plenty of things about how he was rude and difficult to work with, and well, from that point on, things kind of changed. That's not to say that he didn't have large films, he still gets large films, but there's been an onslaught of, presumably, and I can't confirm if they all are, but direct-to-video action-style films. Lower budgets, with covers that remind you of a Steven Seagal film. These I've been largely putting off due to the, well, let's say, unfavourable reviews from pretty much everybody. I like my direct-to-video action films, and I love films even with Steven Seagal when he sits in a chair. I still find them enjoyable. But there's been so much negative press and reviews about pretty much all of his 2010 onwards action films. Mainly the complaint has been he's only in it for a few minutes. I'm going to see this for myself, and I have a large stack of 16 action type films that he may only be in for 30 minutes in a grand total. And we're going to take a quick look at these. I haven't watched most of them yet. In fact, I've only watched one of them, and that's the last one. These are all my new journey. I'm going to be going through the Bruce Willis direct-to-video action films, fully expecting that he's not going to be in many of them. So we're just going to take a look at the covers and talk a little bit about the blurbs and the co-stars in the films, because I think you're going to find that for the most part, it's the co-stars that are leading them. So in 2010, after Cop Out, Bruce Willis had a small role in The Expendables and then did the movie Red. But after that, things got direct to video, and the first one that I recognise as being the beginning of his change in films would be Set Up. This film also stars Curtis 50 Cent Jackson and Ryan Philippe, I'm not sure. So I think you can kind of tell that Bruce is not going to be the main man. This is something we're going to get used to. Yes, he's on the cover. Yes, he's in the middle. There's two other people on there. I bet you dollars to donuts, they are the stars. This particular movie is a group of friends plan out a detailed heist that turns deadly when one betrays the other by taking off with the goods. Taking matters into his own hands, Sonny, we don't know who Sonny is, seeks out his revenge by teaming up with the most dangerous mob boss in town to get back what is rightfully his. We could place bets on who's who. Bruce has a tie, perhaps he's the mob boss, and that usually means that we only see him for a small part as he's the bad guy. So anyway, this is setup from 2011. Also from 2011 we get The Cold Light of Day. This one looks more like a suspense kind of action film based on the cover art. Some kind of, Born Identity, who knows. But this one also has Henry Cavill and apparently Sigourney Weaver. Now, I expect Sigourney Weaver not to be in there much, but we're pretty much going to get a Henry Cavill film here, I'm sure. And, how many minutes of Bruce Willis are we going to get? 10, 20, 50? I'll watch it and find out. Cold Light of Day, an adrenaline-fueled action thriller starring British star Henry Cavill. At least they're owning that he's the star. They're putting him number one, so we're not lying too much. And Hollywood action legend Bruce Willis and Sigourney Weaver. She's put last. She might even have less scenes. Henry Cavill arrives in Spain for a week-long sailing vacation with his family. Family are kidnapped and will turn out to be intelligence agents hell-bent on recovering a mysterious briefcase. Oof. Unwittingly embroiled in government conspiracy, he has agents from all sides hot on his trail. Chase, Madrid, all kinds of things. No mention of Bruce Willis. Who knows? Absolutely no idea. He could be the bum on the street for 3 minutes. Who knows? So this one, no idea what we're gonna get. Next, from 2011 again, we have Fire with Fire. And Bruce is clearly the biggest head on this cover here, but he's apparently known as Josh Duhamel. One of my pet peeves is when the names don't match the heads. Bruce Willis is also apparently going to be Rosario Dawson, so hey, I love it when they do that. But we all know this guy. This guy who is Josh, he's going to be the star, of course. Take a look at the back, he's right there. None of these photos have Bruce except for a little tiny one down here that has a little tiny Bruce. So, how much little tiny Bruce do we get in this film? This tense, gripping, turbocharged thriller comes from the producer of 16 Blocks, which was a proper Bruce Willis film. Features an all-star cast, etc., etc. Ace firefighter Jeremy Coleman, that's Josh Duhamel. So, there you go, there's our star. At the wrong place at the wrong time, he has just witnessed a brutal and senseless murder in a convenience store. Detective Mike Seller, Bruce Willis, forces him to testify against the perpetrator. That could be anything. Forces him to... He could be there for 5 minutes. He could just be one scene at a table saying, sign this letter. I mean, it could be anything. So, who knows how much Bruce we're going to get in this film, but I'm sure he's not going to be holding much of a weapon. Fire with Fire. Going to 2014 now, we've got The Prince. This film also stars Jason Patric, John Cusack, who's there, 50 Cent yet again, second time, and a bunch of people I've never heard of. But this is going to be really interesting that we've got Jason Patric and John Cusack and Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is in the middle. I wonder even how much John Cusack we're going to get. It's going to be this guy. Of course it's going to be this guy. Anyway, Jason Patric, first name on the back, leads a venerable group of veterans and newcomers in The Prince, unrelenting action film that forces a retired crime boss into the seedy underworld. Okay. 20 years, Paul Brennan, Jason Patric, retired New Orleans crime boss, has lived a quiet life off the grid, running an auto repair shop. Oh dear. His teenage daughter goes missing. Paul is forced to return to the city and face his former enemies. With the help of his daughter's friend Angela, that's Jessica Londes, Paul comes face to face with Omar, and that's Bruce Willis, the city's most powerful man, whose family he mistakenly took out in an explosion. That sounds like a 5-minute entrance into the film to me. He's going to be there right at the end, isn't he? This is The Prince. Look at that grizzled beard. Don't think we get too much out of this one, The Prince. From 2015 we have Vice. This one's a bit of a science fiction action film. Looks kind of cool. We've got Thomas Jane, obviously he's a bit of a name, and we've got Bruce Willis, who's got the big head at the top, and Amber Childers, who is obviously her, but I don't know who she is, therefore she's probably the star, because that's how these things roll. Julian Michaels, Bruce Willis, he is named first, has designed the ultimate resort, Vice, where anything goes and the customers play out their wildest fantasies with artificial inhabitants who look and feel and think like humans. When an artificial, that's Amber, becomes self-aware and escapes, she finds herself caught in the crossfire between Julian's mercenaries and a cop, Thomas Jane, who is hell-bent on shutting down vice and stopping the violence. So this to me sounds like it's going to be an Amber film. She escapes, gets caught up with Thomas Jane, and he'll probably end up helping her, and every now and then we're going to see Bruce Willis saying, "No, it's my vice." Vice. Next up from 2015 we get Extraction. This one stars Kellen Lutz, who I believe was in Expendables 3 from memory, or 2? No, he's in number 2 I think. We get Bruce Willis, big head on the front, and Gina Carano, who was in, she actually starred in her own action film, In the Blood, in 2014, and has since been in The Mandalorian and a few other things, but anyway, this is Extraction. Now how much Bruce are we going to get, do we think? A terrorist group kidnaps retired CIA field operative Leonard Turner, and that's Bruce Willis, so he's been captured. His son, Harry Turner, that's Kellen Lutz, government analyst who's been repeatedly turned down for blah blah blah, launches his own unsanctioned rescue operation. Evading highly skilled operatives, deadly assassins, international terrorists, Harry finally puts his combat training to the test in a high-stakes mission to find his father and stop the terrorist plot. He is going to be, in the beginning, he's going to get thrown in the back of a van, and then in the last 5 minutes he's going to get reunited with his son. I absolutely guarantee it. Extraction. In 2016 we got Precious Cargo. This one has got Mark Paul Gosselaar, I think I'm saying that right, Bruce Willis right there in the middle, and Claire Forlani, a name I don't recognise. Yeah, pretty big Bruce there with a boat beneath him. Precious Cargo. Let's see what we get out of the back. After a botched heist, Eddie, that's Bruce Willis, a murderous crime boss, the crime boss again, hunts down the seductive thief Karen, that's Claire, who failed him. In order to win back Eddie's trust, Karen recruits her ex-lover and premier thief Jack, and that's Mark Paul, to steal a cargo of rare precious gems. This one's kind of hard to read. It sounds like that it's a Bruce Willis-led film, but I don't think that's going to be the case. He's probably going to kick things off, and then it's going to be the other two running it. So that's Precious Cargo. I'm very curious about this one. In 2016 we got Marauders, and this one I have on good authority is a good film, and that's because it's got Dave Bautista in it. He's always a bit of fun in these action films. Big beefy guy. We do get Christopher Maloney and Bruce Willis and Adrian Griner as well, so a bit of a cast of names there on the front. Yeah, you can, equal head size I think for all of them, but Bruce is there on the left, so how much are we going to get in terms of a star? Explosive action thriller, explosive action, starring Bruce Willis, Christopher Maloney, who's from Law & Order apparently, Dave Bautista from Spectre, and Adrian Griner from Entourage, a series I had no interest in ever watching. Veteran FBI agent is hell-bent on bringing down a group of highly skilled bank robbers. This team of elite criminals not just after the money, rather there is a larger, more deadly conspiracy in play from the producers of Lone Survivor, Escape Plan, good film, and Bus 657, also apparently a good film, packed with heart-pounding suspense. Well, it's kind of hard to read on this one as well what Bruce Willis is doing, but I am told it is a good film, so that's a good sign. How much Bruce we get, don't know, but I think we get enough of Bautista. In 2016 again, we get Once Upon a Time in Venice. Now, I did see a trailer for this some time ago. I'm pretty sure it's more of a comedy that has some action bits in it. So I do know that going in, it's not going to be a blow-em-up action film, despite what this cover might be saying. But we do get Bruce Willis right there. He's not looking at the camera, that's a sign. And we do get a Jason Momoa, who was definitely big in Game of Thrones, but then Stargate Atlantis before that, and a whole bunch of other things. But what else we get? We get John Goodman, who's there on the back. There's always a sign it's going to be a comedy. Thomas Middleditch, I don't know who that is, and Famke Janssen, another person I don't know who that is, but does have John Goodman. Steve Ford, that's Bruce Willis, is down but not out, LA-based private investigator. That's a good sign. Professional and personal worlds collide after his loving pet Buddy, it's a dog, I could see him on the back, stolen by a notorious gang. That sounds a bit like a John Wick, but not dead dog. A series of crazy circumstances find him doing the gang's bidding whilst being chased by two vengeful Samoan brothers, loan sharks, goons, and a few other shady characters. They say a dog is a man's best friend, and Steve shows how far a man will go. This sounds like he's leading this. It really does. And I don't think I'm going to dispute that. I think this is a leading role for him and a bunch of supporting characters. It's a shame that apparently it is more comedy than action, but hey, a leading role there. 2017 now, and we've got First Kill. This one's got Bruce Willis, of course, but it's got Hayden Christensen, best known and pretty much only known as being the whiny Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 2 and 3. I'm not sure what that makes this movie. But anyway, Bruce is the biggest person on the cover, and Hayden is the second biggest, because there's only two. How does it read? In order to reconnect with his son, Ty Shelton... There's no Ty Shelton on the front. That's the name of the actor. Something's afoot. Big shot Wall Street broker Will, that's Hayden Christensen, takes his family on a hunting trip to the cabin where he grew up. While off hunting with his son Danny, doesn't even have an actor's name, the trip takes a deadly turn when they stumble upon several robbers and witness the murder of one of their criminals. After becoming entangled in a bank heist gone bad, the results of the kidnapping are of Danny. Will is forced to help the kidnappers evade the police chief, Bruce Willis, and recover the stolen loot in exchange for his son's life. This one is definitely going to be a 30-second job for Bruce. And Ty Shelton, he's not here. He's not even on the back. He sounds like he's going to be one of the leads, and that's very interesting. So anyway, I think it's going to be the Hayden and Ty show. 2017 again, we get Acts of Violence. This one's got all kinds of names on the front. We get Cole Hauser, Bruce Willis, Sean Ashmore, Ashton Holmes, Melissa Bologna with Sophia Bush, and Mike Epps. I don't know any of these people. No idea what I'm talking about. But I guarantee it's not going to be Bruce doing most of this. He's front and center, but let's see. For the McGregor brothers, the question becomes life or death decision that tests their strength, courage, and sense of family. When Mia, the fiancée of Roman McGregor, that's Ashton Holmes, is abducted by a human trafficking ring, Roman and his brothers, Brendan, that's Sean, and Declan, that's Cole, decided to save Mia on their own. Brendan in the trio's big-hearted protector, Declan is the troubled war vet trying to find his footing. They're guided by Detective Avery, Bruce Willis, the cop on the case whose sense of duty will be pushed to the limits, etc., etc. Another paragraph. I think he's just going to be a bit part yet again. Bit of a bit part Bruce. Detective on a case with all the other guys. I don't know. I'm not getting a strong feeling about this one. I think it's going to be bit part Bruce. 2017 again. Reprisal. This one's got Frank Grillo, who I thought was really cool in Beyond Skyline, which was, the Skyline sequels are a lot of fun. He's there with a big head, and it's got Bruce on the side, and I don't know who this bloke is, so let's just see what we have on the back. Two men face deadly decisions in this gritty action thriller starring Bruce Willis and Frank Grillo. Bruce's build first. A bank manager haunted by a violent robbery that took the life of a co-worker teams up with the ex-cop neighbour to track down and bring out the assailant. Two men work together to figure out the thief's next move. A highly trained criminal is one step ahead, barreling down a path of bloodshed that leads to an explosive counterattack, etc., etc. No names mentioned. No names mentioned. This could go anywhere. The photos do sort of have a bit of Bruce, and does have Bruce and Frank Grillo in the same room, not killing each other. So I think they might be the team that are to bring down the assailant, rather than one of them being the assailant. So maybe there's a good chance we'll get a bit of Bruce in this one. I'd say instead of bit part Bruce, we get a bit of Bruce. 2018, we have The Bombing, also called Airstrike in some territories. This one's hard to work out. Chinese-made film, I think, because the entire cast and crew on the back have Chinese names. We get Bruce Willis build at first and his big head on the front with a nice hat. With Yi Lu's second build, I'm going to assume that's him there. I'm getting a feeling he's going to be the star, but anyway, with Bing Bing Fan, don't know who that is, Adrian Brody, he's over there, and Rumour Willis, don't know. Hard to read already. So Bruce Willis headlines, actually says headlines. Headlines a pulse-pounding, untold story of World War II's most heroic battle. Japanese Imperial Army invades the Chinese Air Force and finds itself grievously outmanned and outgunned. Under terrible conditions, with a lack of resources, weapons and experience, they enlist the help of the US Air Force Commander Jack Johnson, that's Bruce Willis, to train the squadrons to fight the elite Japanese Zero fighters. Train squadrons. I think he's just going to be barking a few orders. I don't think he's going to be doing much else. He's going to train some people. He won't be there, he'll do some training, and then he won't be there. That's my opinion, and I think that's what's going to happen in the bombing. 2019 now, and it's 10 minutes gone. This one we've got Bruce Willis on the right and Michael Chiklis on the left, and he's bigger. So I think we're going to say that he's the star of the film. Let's see what it says on the back. Screen legend Bruce Willis, Die Hard, and Michael Chiklis from The Shield. Never seen it, but I think I do recognise him. Team up in a sizzling crime thriller. Grizzled crime lord Rex Willis. He's the crime lord. Drafts thief Frank Chiklis to assemble a crew and steal a priceless haul of jewels, etc., etc. Right, he's going to be at the start. He's going to say, "Get me a crew." The guy gets the crew. We don't see Willis until the end. 10 minutes gone. From 2020 we have Hard Kill. That is such a Steven Seagal title. We get Jesse Metcalfe and Bruce Willis. Equal-sized heads. Could go either way. Take on a madman, save the world. From the executive producer of The Irishman. Interesting. When billionaire tech CEO Donovan Chalmers, that's Bruce Willis, he's a CEO, hires a team of mercenaries, here we are, to protect a lethal piece of technology. Security expert and the team's leader, Derek Miller, Jesse Metcalfe, finds himself in a deadly showdown with an old enemy. Yeah, so that's another one of those ones where Bruce is going to set up the team and say, go and do your team stuff, and we won't see him until the end. Hard kill. Hard luck. 2020, we have Breach. This one I can talk about. This one I have watched. This one I have reviewed. I will leave the link down below. This one was a lot of fun. This is a sci-fi action movie. This is like The Thing in space. And yes, Bruce is big on the front. And we also get Cody Kersley and Raquel Nichols and Thomas Jane. Bruce is in this movie for about 2/3 of it. He has a properly, I won't say leading role, I'd say second tier. It's really a mix. It's a bit of a mix act of who gets sort of the lead. So yeah, it's hard to really say who is the lead in this film, but he gets plenty of screen time. Gets a lot of one-liners, blows stuff up. This is a good film from Bruce Willis. Breach. I really enjoyed this one. So there you have it. That's 16 Bruce Willis films you've probably never heard of. I've got 2 more in the post that haven't had an Australian release yet. One's called Survive the Night, and another one is called Trauma Center. Both came out 2020, so we will see how they go. Hope you enjoyed my overview of the direct-to-video Bruce Willis series, and thanks for watching.